Hello guys, Charles here and welcome back to my channel and to the first video of 2021. I hope you all had a great New Year celebrations and that we're all looking forward to a slightly better year in 2021. So I just want to share a chord shape with you today, a little idea that's something which I should have been using for ages, but really I've only been using this recently in the last few years of my playing. But in terms of understanding it, there's no reason I shouldn't have been able to use this one for the last 10 years or so. So hopefully I can spare you that time. It's a great tool both for rhythm playing as an accompanist, but also as a lead player. For today, we're just going to focus on it as a chord in its own right, rather than thinking about it as a lead player. But this is a chord that I'm going to call a sus2 chord. Now, there's loads of different ways of naming this chord. The sus naming system's kind of become a little bit skewed. You've got guys like Coldplay who would call this a sus chord, this Coldplay chord. But originally a sus meant that it was in place of the third, whereas that chord it's more like an add 4. But it still gets called a sus chord. Another guy who the transcriptions use that terminology a lot, even though it's got the third and the fourth, is Bill Evans. And Bill Evans obviously was a huge fan of Chris Martin and the Coldplay lads, so he probably pinched it from them. But for the purposes of this video, I'm going to use the sus terminology. Again, this video is not about theory, it's about actually playing. So I'm going to say sus, but you can call it whatever you want. And more specifically, we're talking about sus2 chords, which are slightly less common than sus4 chords. But there's a few different shapes of this that I want to show you. But the great thing about these shapes is we can use them. In essence, we can cover all the chord types with this one chord shape. So anyway, enough chat, let's get to it. So here's the first shape we're going to look at. Now, just for the purposes of writing something above it, I've written A7 sus2. However, we don't really know if this is an A7 chord with a 2, like this shape, but moved to a 2, or whether it's an A minor 7, moved to a 2. Remember, when I'm using the sus terminology, I mean instead of the third. So therefore, you could think of this as a 9 chord with no third. And if we've got no third, it means we've got no tonality. Now that's good news for us as players, because it means that we can use this same chord shape for an A7 and an A minor 7. Makes no difference. So you can use that one chord shape to cover 7 chords and minor 7 chords. Now there's another shape I want to show you, which is this shape here. Bit more eerie sounding, that one. So again, just for the sake of writing something, I've written A7 flat 5 sus2. But we don't know whether this is an A7 with a flat 5, or whether it's an A minor 7 with a flat 5, because there's no third to tell us that. Therefore, we can use that chord in place of both. So if I see any altered 7 chord, but in this case a 7 flat 5 chord, or sharp 11, I can play this chord. And the great thing is I could then do a little hammer on to give me the correct tonality, whichever one I'm opting for. Now, if you are a little bit of a theory nerd, you know that that minor 7 flat 5 chord usually comes from the Locrian scale, which would have a flat 9, not a natural 9, instead of this. However, what most modern players interpret that chord as is not chord 7 of the major scale, the Locrian. They interpret it as chord 6 of the melodic minor scale, which does have a natural 2. And that's kind of a Aeolian flat 5, or the terminology I prefer for that is just the half diminished scale, which is a really nice way of thinking about it, because we'll think of that as a half diminished chord as well, which does have a natural 2. So that's a more modern approach, but most of the bebop guys think of it as being Locrian, but they don't use that terminology. And in this instance, I'm using that natural second coming from the melodic minor's 6 mode. So already we've got 2 chord shapes, this one and this one. And this first one can immediately cover 7 chords and minor 7 chords. This second one can immediately cover 7 flat 5 chords and minor 7 flat 5 chords, or half diminished. So we're off to a good start. Now there's some other ways we can use these same shapes as well if we don't play them in root position. So for example, if I take this first shape here, and to add some context, because I've got my low B string, I'm going to do this in the key of B. I'm going to move that shape to the 3rd degree of the chord I want to imply. So in this case it's B. So I'm going to move it all the way up here to the 11th fret, which gives me my D sharp, which is the 3rd note of B. B, C sharp, D sharp. So I've got that shape there on the 11th fret now instead of the 5th fret. And if I add the low B to that to give it some context, I get a lovely Lydian sounding chord there, which I've labelled as B major 9 sharp 11. But again, you can think of that whichever terminology works best for you. I can take that same shape, and if I go back to the 5th fret, now if I'm thinking of that as an A minor 7 now, without its 3rd, if I'm interpreting it that way, A minor 7Sus2, then it must also be the relative major of A minor. Well, the relative major of A minor is of course C. So a great way to imply that this is C is simply to take this low A note here and put it, instead of the low E string, to the top E string, which gives me this, which is like a C major 13. Quite difficult to play those all at once, but I'm doing a little bar with my little finger. So that's a C major 13. The bassist would probably take care of that low C, of course. Now the most fun I find is with this flat 5 one, because anything altered is always fun. So if we take this altered shape, doing it here on the 7th fret, again, if I think of that in terms of B, that could be like a B7 flat 5 chord without the 3rd. Now here's the great thing. For flat 5 chords, they are symmetrical on the tritone. So the tritone of B is F. So I can play that same chord shape on F, which is all the way up here on the 13th fret, still over B, and I just get a different flavour of the same chord. Sorry, my intonation's a little bit off there. And I can do the same thing on the 3rd of each of those roots. So on the 3rd of B, which is D sharp again. And that gives me the 3rd, the 9th, the flat 5, and the 7th. And I can do it on the 3rd of F, 3rd of the tritone, which is A. And that's all the way up here now. And that gives me the 7th, the raised 5th, F double sharp, the root, and the 3rd. Now these are starting to get quite uncomfortable up here. So of course, as with any chord shape, we can move them up to the next string set. So those same chords played in a more sensible way would look like this. B9 flat 5. Another version of B9 flat 5. Now I'm going to move up a string set here, so I'm going to play this on strings 1, 2, 3 and 5. So I'm going to play it up here, and that's going to give me a B7 with a flat 5 down here, F, and a sharp 5 up here on the B string, F double sharp, looks like a G. And then I can move that shape onto the 3rd of the tritone, which is A. A lot more comfortable to play on this 2nd string set rather than me being all the way up here. Not very comfortable at all. So try including that one in your playing this week. It's really easy to vamp, you can sit there and strum it really easily. And using those 2 chord shapes, we can cover major 7 chords, we can cover minor 7 chords, we can cover dominant 7 chords, we can cover minor 7 flat 5 chords, and we can cover altered dominants. So really, really powerful chord shapes. And you can see as well how these, having extra colours available to us, we can add these in movements and start helping our voice leading by adding a few extra passing tones, having a few options available to us. So if you found that video useful, please do give this video a like, subscribe, ding that notification bell, and share with any of your friends who might also benefit from this content. Let me know down below in the comments what videos you'd like to see in this new year. We can talk about anything here on this channel, whatever you like, let me know, anything you want to know about, and I'll do my best to make it in the most detailed and clearest way possible for you. And as always, I hope you're all doing very well, getting plenty of practice in, and I very much look forward to seeing you in the next one. Cheers!
Roll up, let me embed a story you'll never forget. A drip, drip, you're drowning in debt now. You can't buy your way out, and I heard you find it difficult to cope.